there's not enough of a mix from when I'm looking for musicians and stuff like that. I mostly get Latino and Caucasian, or so that's so I'd have to say we need more. I think we need to see more of that mixture in there, and we need to promote more musicianship, and I guess in that culture, and see more of it. But I know that there's more segregation in other cities between the two cultures, like Houston. So, I mean, when I get musicians from Houston come up to San Antonio, and I'm not going to name names, but I hear the worst, most negative comments about. It's such a rivalry. And I'm like, come on, man, that's not our history. Our history has always been the minority get together and we make things happen. We don't, kind of fight for our little piece of the neighborhood or whatever, piece of the pie. And I'd like to see more of that combination in metal music. We don't see enough of that in rock and roll. There's more of that in hip hop, and there's some of it in soul and funk. But I want to see that more in metal and rock and roll. And I want it everywhere, and so yeah, that's my little bit.
I guess there's two parts to this, right? Where is it historically? Where do we see it? Historically, I think since the 40s, San Antonio has seen this mixture of musicians, more so here than I think we saw anywhere else, maybe in California, in terms of African American culture and Mexican American and Chicano mixtures of on the bandstands. And certainly, Chicanos in the 50s and 60s were taking a lot of inspiration from music happening on the east side of those bands. I've spoken to a lot of those musicians on the Chicano side of things, and they were teenagers hanging out outside of the bar because they couldn't go inside to hear the music of B.B. King or James Brown or Ike and Tina Turner. They just were hanging out there. So I think that relationship has historically been here and quite celebrated. And we get the West Side sound of San Antonio, which is a mixture sound and has put us on the map nationally. Where is it today? I think it's happening in San Antonio, and it happens all the time when you go to a show, and it's sort of unconscious again, because I go back to this thing that we don't have those barriers in San Antonio. We're able to see across all that. And so I see it happening regularly. On the DJ side of things, as far as I can remember, since 1995, all of our crowds have always been mixed. And that's something that we also celebrate. And I know for Leonard and myself, we've always tried to make it extremely affordable to everybody, whether if it's free or just $3. That's what we've always tried to do, so that we don't start to separate people by financial class, right? Only the people who can afford $10 get in. The better ones are just free, and there's no dress code, and this is what invites everybody. We start to get past all that stuff and really mix it up. So is it happening today? I think it is, and it's kind of embedded in us.
I just also wanted to mention that at first, becoming a soul singer as a Latina, I got met by a lot of, at first people were like, you're going to sing soul music? Or, can you sing soul music? You're not black. And it just took me not listening to people like normal. I don't listen to people when they tell me things like I shouldn't do it or I should do it or whatever. And I'd have to say that I'm very, very glad that I didn't listen to a lot of people. But in the end, now it's like I hear comments like, man, this girl sings like a black woman, And it's like, no, I sing like me, And I think it's a great comment. I love it. But people are surprised still when Chicanos can perform, soul music, funk music. You're going to do a James Brown show? Okay, one, you're not a man. Two, you're not black. So how do you think you're going to be able to pull off singing 13 James Brown songs and put on this exciting James Brown show? But we had a great time. I think the audience had a great time. And honestly, I think we're breaking those barriers the more we don't listen to what people think we should and shouldn't do. And so, yeah, just keep doing your own thing.
Okay, this question is geared more towards Suzy and Vocab. So, how have you been perceived as female musicians in the soul realm of soul music?
Okay, usually because I'm big and black, they're like, okay, whatever she's going to do, it should be good, So I But I can say as a woman, it's very difficult when you go into club venues to get taken seriously. And I think that's it all has to do with how you carry yourself. I always attack it as, even though I am here to entertain, I am working. So there is no, I'm going to sit up here and get plastered and not be able to, I keep a clear head. That way, when I go to speak to the owners of these venues, you know, or whoever's booking the event, I can speak to them articulately, and they know to respect me. So I can, you know, and it's just, I think it's posturing, a lot of it, and just, you know, I get inspiration from a lot of different places. I mean, I get it from gospel, and I get it from hip hop, and then I get it from soul, and just reaching back into classic soul and listening. I think it's about pulling the texture and the tone, mixing that with your emotion, because mostly soul music is about the emotion and struggle, because that's where I think that's where the soul comes from. You gotta go through some pain, gotta have some tragedy. You know what I'm saying? Once people get famous, it's like, they're not on cocaine anymore. Their music's not as good. You know? I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, to me, that's why I feel like a lot of people fall off. Is you can't, even though you may, you know, you're progressing in life, you still have to stay connected to where you came from and who you are and your identity. But I'd say, being accepted, it can be I think sometimes difficult for me as an African American woman. I know I'm hearing a lot of, oh yeah, there's mixtures, but sometimes when I go to book a show, they're looking at me like, you need to have there's a brown in your band. You know, and a brown in your band, I'm not really trying to book you because, you know, we don't want our venue to necessarily be associated with a whole bunch of black people coming up in here. And I'm like, hey, they got money. Money is green. They're going to spend it. You know, as long as they're buying drinks and they're coming in your venue, then you need to respect it. So I can say that I've had some difficulties sometimes. Sometimes I'll just hey, you book the show. If you call me to do the show, I'll do it. But as far as me trying to go out there and pedal hard and beat the block and try to get shows, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not willing to do it. Because I know I need to go into a venue that's going to respect the fact that I have artistic creativity and craziness is going on. I'm not going to have any craziness. Nobody going to come shoot up your club. We're just going to have a good time. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that's where my thing is coming. You have to posture yourself a certain way so that you draw a certain crowd so that people know there can be an element of grit there, but a sophistication and a polish to it as well.
It's kind of hard going into just being a singer, a soul singer as a woman, or playing, you know, performing in the soul scene, without really talking about being a woman in the music industry in general. I know that being a woman, I guess the difference is that you really have to earn those stripes, and you don't get taken seriously in the beginning. Back in like 2000. When I moved back from LA, even though there I was with Carol Rogers, I come back from LA and I'm thinking, I'm going to come back to little old San Antonio and try to start a band. And, you know, I got asked to join a band and I got kicked out because half the band decided that they wanted a guy to sing in the band. They didn't want a woman. And then the other half of the band were like, no, but she's great. And then they ended up breaking up right after that. So good riddance to that.
Me too.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, because I'm a woman, I really kicked butt on that, I think I did really well, and half the band thinks I did well, but the other half like, well, she's not a man. We want a man singing. When I moved to New York, I answered an ad for a really great band, and apparently they were playing lots of shows. They lost their singer. The singer was a guy. It was a rock and roll band, and we had all these great conversations about music, these obscure artists that we loved and had in common. And when it came down to auditioning, they called me, and they were all female, by the way. And they said, you know what, we decided we want to have a guy singing. We've got to keep the ballads in the band. I was so kind of surprised, like, wait a minute. You guys are all women, guitar, drummer, bass player, and you don't want a man to sing your band. You of all people should understand that we don't need that kind of, you know, that barrier to keep us down. But anyway, so I came back home, and I started my own band. You know, I was like, I'm not going to answer these ads anymore. Forget that. I'm just going to start my own thing. I don't care if we sound horrible. I'm just going to do what I can. And, you just earn those strides. You just blow people, you just do your thing, you keep pushing, And you've got to get taken serious eventually, you know. People will show that it's not just a phase, that you're not going to just wimp out in the end. You just got to keep going, and eventually people will take you serious. And yeah, it's you got to earn those stripes being a woman. But most of the time, I love being a woman, and I love having that attention, and I love being able to use my sexuality. There are kids in the room. I'm sorry. And my, you know, my silly goofiness and that grit that you're talking about, vocab, and you know, finding that balance and just that bag of tricks that you've been kind of collecting over the years, and just put it all out there and see what you can do. And you know, lots of times I surprise myself, and that's because we're nurturers, so we have to take care of people. We feel like we have to be everything, superwoman, you know. And when we're putting it into our music, I think that yeah, it's just great being a woman. So anyway, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Actually, I do have something for this question here. I know that sounds crazy, but okay. So I've interviewed a lot of musicians from San Antonio's past, in the '60s, and it was the women that I interviewed that could remember everything, and the men were like, I can't remember the date. We were somewhere, and the women knew all the names of all the clubs, all the dates, who was playing on the bandstand. They had more detail than I, but it was great. As an
Thank you for the insight. Well, I think we have a few minutes for Q&A if anybody has a question.